Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Super Breakdown. Today we're looking at the YMS-15 Gyan, piloted by Makuve. This is a suit that I use quite often. I absolutely adore the Gyan, and I love it in just about every one of these games. This might be my least favorite version of the Gyan, but it's still really good, and let's get into why. You have your basic shot, which is the mines. You fire those forward. The missiles, that is, not the mines. The mines are a separate thing. You have 10 of these. They fire 2 to 5 at a time, depending on how long you hold the button. They do decent damage. The main purpose of them is physical projectile that can break other physical projectiles that can do some quick damage when your enemy may not expect it. Very useful for that. Not so much useful for everything else, but they do a good job, and they reload very quickly, so you'll get them back relatively quick. There's a charge on them as well. The charge is not that great, but it does the job. It calls in your striker, or one of your 2 strikers, which is Sharzgelgug. He does okay. He fires 3 shots and then leaves, and those shots will almost always miss. Very rarely do they hit, but if you can hit all 3, you get 122 damage off of it, which is not too bad at all. It's just more trouble than it's worth a lot of times to rely on it, especially when I use the Gyan mostly as a melee suit. Your other striker is the Adzam. You call it in with the left bumper on the controller. That will summon it in, and after a short run forward, it will use the electric field there to be able to grab a hold of your enemy and stun them. It is a guaranteed stun if it connects. The problem is that it's really hard to connect with. It has a very short operation range, and it will always drop the cage at a specific range. It doesn't aim for the enemy. So you'll have to be ready for that and know your ranges to be able to really capitalize on it. You also have the minefield, which you can use to block strikers. You can use it to block melee attacks. In a lot of ways, I think it's more useful than a parry, even though it doesn't come back quite as quickly, because it can also break physical projectiles. I tripped over the word physical there, which is very handy, and they explode after a set period of time too, which gives you some more options with it. The final thing that you have in your basic kit, before we get into melee and everything else, is the shield. The shield will block melee attacks. It can also block ranged attacks, but it has light durability. The trade-off for that is that it reloads after it's broken. So, get the shield, let it take some damage, you do some damage while you have it, and it'll block some attacks for you, take some damage for you. We'll go ahead and let it take this one. There we go. And when you burst, or over enough time, it will reload, which is very, very useful. You can use it if you're facing off against a Bale or facing off against something with a lot of Garobis, something like a Cheridem. You can really punish with that. I meant Dynamis. I said Cheridem. I'm also trying to think and play. You have your burst. Burst on the Gyan is really useful. It's just a nuke. It's kind of hard to aim and target with because it does a huge AoE, but you also don't have to connect with a melee attack with it. So you have some extra capabilities that you might not have had otherwise because of it. When was the last time we timed out? Okay. Going into the second round, we ask the same question as always. I'm excited if it seems like I'm more manic than usual. I'm excited because I get to talk about the Gyan, and I don't want to mess it up because I love the Gyan. And I probably should just re-record this one, but hey, we're having fun. Let's go. Should you use the Gyan? Yes, and I'm going to show you why. The Gyan it's really, really fun with melee. Let's get into the melee. I think the rest of the kit works really well in preparing you to get into melee, but you put on the shield, you fire off the mines, and then you just go in. Fire off the missiles to get going there, and forward melee, or regular melee, that is. Pretty good. Side melee. That's back melee, which can be kind of hard to land with, honestly, because they can just sidestep it, but we'll show it off here anyway. There we go. Does some good damage. Forward melee. Forward melee while dashing is different from regular forward melee. Regular forward melee lets you jump up, which is very useful. You can dodge Garobis and things like that with it. Very, very handy. I love it so much. I turned off the shield there like a fool. Like that. And then your dashing forward melee is the series of thrusts that can be canceled into, allowing you to really just punish with it. You do have to be careful with that burst again, too, because you can hit your allies with it. You can hit yourself with it. You gotta be a little bit careful there. If you are a player that likes melee, I think you need to try out the Gyan. It is so much fun to just go in with the Gyan and do a bunch of damage. People don't expect how strong the melee is on this fencer because it has such a decent melee kit. The strikers that you can pull out will make people think that you have a much more ranged suit, and then you just pull out a crazy good melee game. Now, that said, it does have its flaws, right? The strikers take up a lot of the movement or abilities on the controller, not movement. So you don't have a lot of other options for ranged. Your ranged game is actually really weak, even if it may seem pretty solid because you can keep throwing out strikers. The shield is really handy, but it does take a while to reload. Your melee is good, but you have very few hits in the combo, so you don't have a lot of options to back out of. And your back melee is going to be extremely situational because the stomp is so easy to sidestep. You really need to capitalize on that when they are struggling, when they're having a tough time, or when they have no boost left. All in all, I think the Gyan is an incredible suit for melee. Absolutely recommend it to melee players. Decent for ranged, but not great. There are a lot better ranged suits. But its close range game is incredible, and I think you should give it a shot. Until next time, though, I've been Trey. This has been the Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that the Gyan has to offer.